Then, however, something happened which made every mouth mute and every eye fixed. In the meantime, of course, the rope dancer had commenced his performance. He had come out at a little door, and was going along the rope, which was stretched between two towers, so that it hung above the marketplace and the people. When he was just midway across, the little door opened once more, and a gaudily dressed fellow like a buffoon sprang out, and went rapidly after the first one. "Go on, halt-foot," cried his frightful voice. "Go on, lazy bones, interloper, sallow face, lest I tickle thee with my heel. What dost thou here between the towers? In the tower is the place for thee. Thou shouldst be locked up. To one better than thyself thou blockest the way." And with every word he came nearer and nearer the first one. When, however, he was but a step behind, there happened the frightful thing which made every mouth mute, and every eye fixed. He uttered a yell like a devil, and jumped over the other who was in his way. The latter, however, when he thus saw his rival triumph, lost at the same time his head and his footing on the rope. He threw his pole away, and shot downwards faster than it, like an eddy of arms and legs, into the depth. The marketplace and the people were like the sea when the storm cometh on. They all flew apart and in disorder, especially where the body was about to fall.
Zarathustra's speech is cut short by a tragedy. The rope dancer, who was performing above his head all along, is stripped by another character and falls to his death. The other guy was probably part of the act, but it went wrong. And what transpired is of course an allegory. Zarathustra used the rope dancer as a metaphor for the condition of man, on his way from the ape to the Superman. He told us that man should live as a downgoer, to make way for someone better who will surpass him, namely the Superman. It seems that the rope dancer fulfilled this part in the script that Zarathustra wrote for him. He did indeed go down, making way for someone who was stronger and jumped above him. This someone, however, is not a metaphor for the Superman. He is rather a buffoon, who is telling the rope dancer that he should not even try to go across the abyss, not try to reach beyond himself. The last man was the worst fate the pure-hearted Zarathustra could imagine for us. But it seems that Nietzsche is warning us that if we do not heed his words, our fate will be something much worse. We can find echoes to it in Nietzsche's other writings. He warned that, since our moral values are still the Christian moral values, but they have no grounds to stand on now that God is dead, humanity is on its way to a catastrophe. Here, shortly before the 20th century, he seems to be warning that the future will bring strongmen who will tell the rest of us to stay locked up, not try to achieve our potential as humans, and give them all the power. And, if we keep going on as we are today, we will be too weak to resist them. Eventually, this will bring the downfall of man, but without anything better to replace him.
Zarathustra, however, remained standing, and just beside him fell the body, badly injured and disfigured, but not yet dead. After a while, consciousness returned to the shattered man, and he saw Zarathustra kneeling beside him. "What art thou doing there?" said he at last. "I knew long ago that the devil would trip me up. Now he draggeth me to hell. Wilt thou prevent him?" "On mine honour, my friend," answered Zarathustra, "there is nothing of all that whereof thou speakest. There is no devil, and no hell. Thy soul will be dead even sooner than thy body. Fear, therefore, nothing any more." The man looked up distrustfully. "If thou speakest the truth," said he, "I lose nothing when I lose my life. I am not much more than an animal which hath been taught to dance by blows and scanty fare." "Not at all," said Zarathustra. "Thou hast made danger thy calling. Therein there is nothing contemptible. Now thou perishest by thy calling. Therefore will I bury thee with mine own hands." When Zarathustra had said this, the dying one did not reply further, but he moved his hand, as if he sought the hand of Zarathustra in gratitude.
The fallen rope dancer believes that he is going to hell, as this is where entertainers, who are usually scorned by the religious types, are said to go. Zarathustra assures him that there is no hell, as there is no afterlife. This, however, does not comfort the dying man, who, having been taught by religious thinking that life's meaning is to be found in the afterlife, thinks that this means that his life was totally meaningless. But Zarathustra tells him that he actually lived life as it should be lived, as an ecstatic dance above the abyss, and also died a proper death while doing his thing. He respects him as someone who was true to the earth, and therefore he wants to give him last honors. This seems to give the man some solace in his final moments.
Meanwhile the evening came on, and the marketplace veiled itself in gloom. Then the people dispersed, for even curiosity and terror become fatigued. Zarathustra, however, still sat beside the dead man on the ground, absorbed in thought, so he forgot the time. But at last it became night, and a cold wind blew upon the lonely one. Then arose Zarathustra and said to his heart, "Verily, a fine catch of fish hath Zarathustra made today. It is not a man he hath caught, but a corpse. Sombre is human life, and as yet without meaning. A buffoon may be fateful to it. I want to teach men the sense of their existence, which is the Superman, the lightning out of the dark cloud, man. But still am I far from them, and my sense speaketh not unto their sense. To men I am still something between a fool and a corpse. Gloomy is the night. Gloomy are the ways of Zarathustra. Come, thou cold and stiff companion, I carry thee to the place where I shall bury thee with mine own hands."
Mulling over the experiences of the day, Zarathustra is starting to draw conclusions from his failure, and admit that he went about it all wrong. He also comes to the conclusion we alluded to earlier, that the current state of man makes him vulnerable to something much worse than what he envisioned in the speech about the last man. As he ponders these insights, he carries the corpse of the rope dancer, aiming to fulfill his promise to bury him.
When Zarathustra had said this to his heart, he put the corpse upon his shoulders and set out on his way. Yet had he not gone 100 steps, when there stole a man up to him and whispered in his ear, and lo! He that spake was the buffoon from the tower. "Leave this town, O Zarathustra," said he. "There are too many here who hate thee. The good and just hate thee, and call thee their enemy and despiser. The believers in the orthodox belief hate thee, and call thee a danger to the multitude. It was thy good fortune to be laughed at, and verily thou spakest like a buffoon. It was thy good fortune to associate with the dead dog. By so humiliating thyself, thou hast saved thy life today. Depart, however, from this town, or tomorrow I shall jump over thee, a living man over a dead one." And when he had said this, the buffoon vanished. Zarathustra, however, went on through the dark streets.
The buffoon, just like he did in the rope dancing act, performs the part of the voice that tells man not to try to walk over the abyss, but remain in safety. In this case, however, he is actually speaking the truth and giving sound advice. Zarathustra thinks only about the great sides of human nature, but the buffoon, as a clown should, is very aware of the petty sides. He warns Zarathustra that the people laughing at him are the least of his problems. There are many who also hate him and want to harm him, because he presents a threat to their values and the order that they uphold. Zarathustra heeds the warning, and heads out of town.
At the gate of the town the gravediggers met him. They shone their torch on his face, and recognizing Zarathustra, they sorely derided him. "Zarathustra is carrying away the dead dog. A fine thing that Zarathustra hath turned a grave-digger, for our hands are too cleanly for that roast. Will Zarathustra steal the bite from the devil? Well then, good luck to the repast. If only the devil is not a better thief than Zarathustra, he will steal them both, he will eat them both." And they laughed among themselves, and put their heads together.
Once again, we see the disparity between Zarathustra's values and the values of his contemporaries. While he respects the rope dancer as someone who lived human life as it should be lived, they regard rope dancers as the lowest of the low. In their religiously derived values, they can see nothing of merit in the joys of earthly life.
Zarathustra made no answer thereto, but went on his way. When he had gone on for 2 hours, past forests and swamps, he had heard too much of the hungry howling of the wolves, and he himself became hungry. So he halted at a lonely house in which a light was burning. "Hunger attacketh me," said Zarathustra, "like a robber. Among forests and swamps my hunger attacketh me, and late in the night. Strange humours hath my hunger. Often it cometh to me only after a repast, and all day it hath failed to come. Where hath it been?" And thereupon Zarathustra knocked at the door of the house. An old man appeared, who carried a light, and asked, "Who cometh unto me and my bad sleep?" "A living man and a dead one," said Zarathustra. "Give me something to eat and drink. I forgot it during the day. He that feedeth the hungry refresheth his own soul, saith wisdom." The old man withdrew, but came back immediately and offered Zarathustra bread and wine. "A bad country for the hungry," said he. "That is why I live here. Animal and man come unto me, the anchorite. But bid thy companion eat and drink also. He is wearier than thou." Zarathustra answered, "My companion is dead. I shall hardly be able to persuade him to eat." "That doth not concern me," said the old man sullenly. "He that knocketh at my door must take what I offer him. Eat, and fare ye well."
The old man is hospitable and helps Zarathustra in his time of need, but it seems that his actions are not based on innate goodness, but on obeying moral laws. He doesn't really care about the condition of the people he shelters. He just believes in the value of hospitality. This is the kind of ethics that Nietzsche rejects.
Thereafter Zarathustra again went on for 2 hours, trusting to the path and the light of the stars, for he was an experienced night-walker, and liked to look into the face of all that slept. When the morning dawned, however, Zarathustra found himself in a thick forest, and no path was any longer visible. He then put the dead man in a hollow tree at his head, for he wanted to protect him from the wolves, and laid himself down on the ground and moss, and immediately he fell asleep, tired in body, but with a tranquil soul.
Thus ends Zarathustra's first day among other humans, after a decade of loneliness. It was a disaster, as expected. The question is, what lessons will you learn from it?